I am the white moonlight in the youth pain literature, who died young from a difficult childbirth for the male lead. 3 years after my death, he got married, the wedding cost over 100 million, and he hired 10 monks to perform a memorial service for me, his ex-girlfriend, wishing me an early ascent to paradise. So as not to delay his wedding night, when I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day he took me away to elope. Griff Shao, blushing, pressed me against the wall. Iris, come away with me, I'd do anything for you. I looked at his still youthful face and smiled. Rising on my tiptoes, I leaned close to his ear and whispered softly, "Sure, I'll go with you. If you die." Consciousness returned, the smell of rotten wood fading, replaced by the sense of chalk dust, old book pages, and sunlight. I jerked my head up, taking in the familiar classroom, desks piled high with textbooks and densely written notes on the blackboard. Beside me was a young man sleeping soundly with his head resting on his arm, his bright yellow hair particularly eye-catching. Griff Shao. My heart felt as if it had been gripped tightly by an icy hand, stopping for a moment before beginning to beat wildly, pounding against my chest with a dull thud. Could it be? I've come back to my senior year of high school, with less than a month left until the college entrance exam. My fingertips trembled slightly as I instinctively glanced around. The red slogan, "Strive for 100 days. Fulfill the dream of Tsinghua and Peking University," posted on the wall catches the eye. On the corner of the desk, the daily schedule I set for myself is neatly and clearly written. In the pencil case, markers of various colors are meticulously arranged. This is Iris Shun at 18, a promising candidate for Tsinghua and Peking University in the eyes of teachers, the child of other parents praised by adults, well-behaved, sensible, and academically outstanding. It was later. For Griff Shao, she eloped, lived in a rented house, willingly gave everything, and ultimately met a tragic end. Shen Ning, and at the end of all this, he achieved fame and success, married someone else, and erased every trace of my existence. Ding ling ling. The bell rang abruptly, startling those around me. Griff Shao frowned and mumbled, rubbing his sleepy eyes as he lifted his head, instinctively looking at me first. Seeing me sitting there with a pale face, he grinned with a mix of post-nap laziness and a hint of roguishness, reaching out to pinch my cheek. "What's wrong, my top student? Is the problem too hard to solve?" I almost instinctively turned my head away as if I had been electrocuted. His hand froze mid-air, and the smile on his face stiffened, a flicker of surprise and displeasure flashing in his eyes. "What's wrong? Not even letting me touch you?" I didn't say anything. Just let my fingertips glide over the thick physics competition workbook. Tucked within the pages of the book is the confession letter Griff Shao gave me a while ago. "Tonight, at the usual spot," he said, paying little attention to my evasiveness. He leaned in closer, lowering his voice with an excited, enticing tone. "I've got everything ready. We leave first thing tomorrow morning. No one will ever find out." "Griff Shao," I interrupted, my voice a bit dry but struggling to stay calm. He raised an eyebrow, waiting for me to continue, his eyes sparkling as if he had already glimpsed a future of freedom. I took a deep breath, pulled the pink letter from my physics workbook, and without any hesitation, tore it apart right in front of him. Rip. The pink stationery was cleanly torn in half and then folded into shreds. I clenched my fist tightly, the sharp edges digging painfully into my palm. Griff Shao's smile instantly froze. His pupils sharply contracted as if he had seen something unbelievable. He grabbed my wrist abruptly, with a terrifying force, his voice rising sharply, filled with shock and the fury of being offended. "Iris Shin, are you crazy? Do you have any idea what the hell you're doing?" The surrounding classmates were drawn by his shout, casting curious glances one after another. "What's going on? Are Griff Shao and Iris Shin arguing? What did Iris Shin tear up? A love letter? That can't be right. Iris Shun likes Griff Shao the most." Those whispers pierced my back like needles. My wrist ached from his tight grip, the heat reminding me of drifting after death, seeing him carefully support the girl who resembled me so much, the veins on the back of his hand and the tenderness in his eyes. A wave of nausea rose in my throat once again. I tried to pull my hand back with force, but he held on tightly. "Let go," I said, looking up at him, my voice turning cold. "Fucking explain it to me first." His eyes were red with rage, completely ignoring the onlookers around him. With a sudden forceful tug, he yanked me right out of my seat. What do you mean? Are you messing with me? Didn't we agree? We said we'd leave together. What the hell is this now? His strength was immense. Ignoring my struggles, he half-dragged, half-pulled me toward the back of the classroom, where cleaning supplies were piled up, and slammed me against the cold wall. A dull thud echoed as my back hit the wall. Shaking the bookshelf, my back ached from the impact, but I made no sound. He pressed forward aggressively, trapping me in his shadow, his scorching anger blasting against my face. Iris shin. He almost growled, his teeth grinding, his eyes swirling with fury and a barely noticeable, betrayed panic. Make yourself clear. What do you mean you're not going? What do you take me for? Were all those things you said before just bullshit? His voice was suppressed and hoarse. Drawing more people's attention, I could feel the gazes coming from all directions. Curious, probing, and those just looking for entertainment. If it were the old Iris shin, she would probably have been too ashamed to show her face by now, only crying and begging him to lower his voice. But now, I just looked at him coldly, gazing at this face filled with hostility and confusion. From the depths of my cold, desolate heart, an overwhelming sense of mockery suddenly surged. I even let out a faint, quiet laugh. Griff Shao was taken aback by my untimely laughter, his grip loosening slightly as his brows furrowed tightly. What are you laughing at? I stopped laughing and met his confused, angry gaze. The sunlight from behind him cast a halo around his blonde hair, lending it a false tenderness. I stood on tiptoe, just as I always did when I kissed him. This action made him pause for a moment, a flicker of confused anticipation flashing in his eyes. I leaned close to his ear, catching the faint scent of tobacco and sun-warmed skin. Then, in a voice so soft only the two of us could hear, I spoke slowly, word by word. Elope, sure. His body stiffened abruptly, and an unbelievable surge of joy instantly flashed in his eyes, but my next words followed immediately. If you die, I'll run away with you. Griff Shao's expression froze instantly, his pupils dilating as if in disbelief. You want me to die, Iris shin? He suddenly gripped my shoulders, his fingers pressing so hard it felt like he was about to crush my bones. His voice was squeezed through gritted teeth, hoarse and terrifying. Say that again. Damn it, are you messing with me? The air around seemed to freeze. The classmates who had been whispering and watching the commotion were also stunned by this sudden turn of events. Everyone held their breath, not daring to make a sound. The corner at the back of the classroom became a vacuum zone, with only Griff Shao's heavy breathing. My shoulder hurt badly, but I just looked at him calmly, watching the shock, anger, and humiliation swirling in his eyes, along with the almost uncontrollable violence that was part of his nature, ready to break free. In my previous life, this brutality, honed by the hardships of later life, had been directed at me countless times. It was only because he still had a sense of novelty toward me back then, and that ridiculous love served as a buffer, that it never fully erupted. Now, with this facade of tenderness torn apart prematurely, it has been laid bare, playing you. I tilted my head slightly, avoiding the scorching breath he exhaled onto my face. What makes you think you're worth my trickery? Are you even worthy? You want me to run away with you? Do you even have the capability? I'll take good care of you, don't you believe me? He growled, trying to overpower me with his volume and lofty promises, attempting to salvage his crumbling pride. I don't believe you, I said softly. Yet those 4 words carried the weight of 1,000 pounds, making his eyes flicker with uncertainty. I paused, my gaze sweeping over his hand that was tightly gripping my shoulder, and said coldly, "From now on, stay away from me. Don't interfere with my studies." Studying. He burst into a derisive laugh as if he had heard the most absurd joke, his smile twisting into something menacing. With just these few fucking days left, what the hell can you possibly learn, Iris shin? Don't you dare act ungrateful. Who else would want someone like you besides me? He didn't finish his sentence, but his cruel intention, to belittle me in order to elevate himself, was laid bare before me. In the past, I probably would have been heartbroken and full of self-doubt. Now, I just find it laughable. I exerted a sudden force and broke free from his restraint. Perhaps my words were too shocking, or perhaps he hadn't fully recovered from the immense shock, but he actually took half a step back from my push. I didn't look at his contorted face again. I bent down, picked up the backpack that had fallen to the ground during the struggle, dusted it off, and turned to leave. Iris shin, stop right there. he roared from behind, his voice filled with furious threats. I didn't look back. My footsteps didn't even pause for a moment as I walked straight to my seat. Sitting back down, I took out a red pen from my pencil case, spread open the 148-point math test paper, and focused on the step where 2 points were deducted, carefully recalculating and correcting it. My back was straight, and my attention seemed completely immersed in the sea of exam questions. The only sound left in the entire world was the rustling of the pen tip gliding across the paper. I could feel that venomous gaze behind me, lingering for a long time without shifting away. In the following days, Griff Shao indeed did not give up. He seems stubbornly convinced that I'm just throwing a tantrum or have been brainwashed by some toxic positivity content, using this extreme method to get his attention. During breaks, he would block the way by my seat, trying to talk to me in his usual casual, carefree tone. "Iris, don't be mad, I'll take you to that hot pot place you love tonight. About that matter, let's discuss it again. Okay, whatever you say goes, but don't say things like not going." He even tried to grab my hand, but I unceremoniously fended him off with the tip of my compass. After school, he would follow behind me, walking neither too close nor too far. "I'll walk you home. You're welcome, Irishan. It's not safe for you to go alone. It's even more unsafe for you to follow me." His brothers also came to persuade her, gathering around with playful smiles. "Sis-in-law, don't be mad at Griff anymore. He's almost turning into a longing-for wife stone. That's right, Griff treats you so well, thinking about you every day." I lifted my eyes and looked at them calmly. "Who is your sister-in-law? If you call me that again, I'll tell the teacher you're harassing me." The boys immediately looked embarrassed, scratched their noses, and walked away. Griff Shao stood not far away, his face so gloomy it could drip water. He started giving me things, expensive imported chocolates, exquisitely packaged jewelry, even the latest model MP3 player. These things, for someone like him who's still a slacker, are definitely worth a fortune. I wonder where he got the money. I shared the chocolate with my deskmate, but left the jewelry and MP3 untouched on his desk. "Take them back, Irishan." "What do you mean by this?" "You mean you're bothering me. And besides, I don't accept rewards for no reason." His patience was clearly running out at a visible rate. The flattery in his eyes and the feigned gentleness were gradually replaced by irritation and an uncontrollable gloom. Once, after I ignored the drink he offered for the third time, he suddenly slammed the bottle to the ground. With a loud bang, the plastic bottle exploded, splattering orange soda everywhere and causing the whole class to gasp in shock. His chest heaved violently, his eyes fixed on me with a fierce glare, his expression twisted in anger. I merely glanced indifferently at the mess on the floor, then picked up a tissue to wipe away a few sticky drops that had splashed onto my workbook, not even furrowing my brow. "Griff Shao," the class monitor couldn't help but stand up. "What's wrong with you? You almost got me. Get lost." Griff Shao didn't even glance at the class monitor, only squeezing out the word through gritted teeth, his gaze still locked on me. That look was filled with an obsessive possessiveness and the ominous warning of a madness that would destroy what it couldn't have. I closed my exercise book, picked up the English textbook for the next class, stood up, walked around that stain, and went to sit at an empty seat on the other side of the classroom, never once giving him a direct look the entire time. His fists clenched tightly at his sides, the knuckles making a faint, cracking sound. I no longer pay attention to any disturbances from him. All the emotions he tried to impose on me, whether anger, pleading, or veiled threats, were blocked out. My world is small, reduced only to the books on my desk and the countdown on the blackboard. I solve practice problems, memorize vocabulary, and organize my collection of mistakes. The efficiency is astonishingly high. The knowledge points that were once neglected due to being love-struck are now clearly coming back to me. Even because I've died once, my mind is free from distractions, and my thinking is clearer and more thorough than in my previous life. When the mock exam results came out, I not only maintained my position in the top 3 of the grade, but I also scored a perfect mark in math. The homeroom teacher praised me highly in class, saying that I have a stable mindset and am a promising candidate for top universities like Tsinghua and Peking. The way my classmates looked at me gradually shifted from initial curiosity about the gossip to pure admiration and envy. Only Griff Shao. Every time I went on stage to receive my exam paper, Every time the teacher praised me by name, I could feel that gaze from the corner of the room growing increasingly gloomy and cold. He no longer came to me frequently, nor did he try to slip me things. He just sat silently in his seat, sometimes sleeping, sometimes staring at me with deep, unfathomable eyes, as if lost in thought. This silence was more unsettling than his previous outbursts of rage, like the dead calm before a storm. I knew the cruelty in his bones had never truly vanished, it was merely lying dormant, waiting, but I am not afraid. I even vaguely hoped he would do something, after all. A well-behaved girl who only focuses on studying, and a troublemaker who repeatedly makes mistakes, smokes, drinks, and fights. Who would the teachers believe? At the final mock mobilization meeting before the college entrance exam, the principal gave a speech in person. After the meeting, the crowd was bustling. I was walking forward with my head down, looking at my mistake notebook, when suddenly someone grabbed my wrist forcefully from behind. The force was so strong that it made me wince in pain instantly. Griff Shao forcibly pulled me to the stairwell at the end of the corridor, which was temporarily empty. Iris Shan. He cornered me against the wall, his voice low and hoarse. Have you had enough of this? He carried a faint scent of cigarettes, his eyes brimming with a madness pushed to the extreme. I'm asking you one last time, are you coming with me or not? I lifted my head, met his gaze, and clearly and firmly uttered 2 words. Not leaving. The last glimmer of light in his eyes extinguished, leaving only a terrifying darkness. He suddenly raised his hand. I thought he was going to hit me, and my body instinctively tensed up, but his palm slammed hard against the wall right beside my ear. Bang! A dull thud echoed through the empty stairwell. He leaned in close, almost nose to nose, his breath hot, and I turned my head away. Fine, you're doing great. He stared into my eyes, word by word, like a curse. Iris Shan. You better remember this. Damn it, you'll regret this. If I, Griff Shao, can't have it, no one else will. The countdown to the college entrance exam has reached 1. Lately, Griff Shao hasn't been bothering me, but for some reason, I feel inexplicably restless since I woke up this morning. My right eyelid has been twitching non-stop, my pen unconsciously scribbles on the draft paper, and all the formulas I write are wrong. This feeling is very familiar. On the day I died in my previous life, I felt the same unease, as if something bad was about to happen, and today happens to be the anniversary of my death in that past life. The cold rented room, the unstoppable heavy bleeding. This scene made my hands and feet go cold. Iris, what's wrong? You look so pale, my deskmate asked with concern, gently touching my arm. Are you too nervous? Relax, I'm sure you'll do just fine. I forced a smile and shook my head. It's nothing, maybe I just didn't sleep well. His gaze subconsciously drifted toward the corner at the back of the classroom. Griff Shao's seat was empty. He hadn't shown up all day. After being called in for a talk with the homeroom teacher yesterday, he came back looking terribly grim. After school, he didn't bother me again, just glanced at me from a distance. And that look sent a chill down to my very bones. Where did he go? This feeling of being out of control intensified the unease in my heart when the school bell rang. I packed my bag much faster than usual. Classmates encouraged each other, saying see you at the exam hall tomorrow, and gradually left. I took a deep breath and told myself not to scare myself. Everything in this life is different now. I am not pregnant, my grades are excellent. My goal is to get into Tsinghua or Peking University, and I have firmly pushed Griff Shao away. Stepping out of the school gate, the setting sun cast a warm golden glow over the streets. Instead of taking the usual bustling main road, I turned into a narrower alley closer to home, hoping to get back quickly. The alley was deep, with the occasional sound of bicycle bells passing by. Halfway through, I suddenly heard hurried footsteps behind me. My heart tightened, and I turned around abruptly. A handkerchief with a pungent odor was suddenly pressed over my mouth and nose. A wave of immense fear instantly seized me. I struggled desperately, kicking and flailing at the person behind me, but their arms clamped around me like iron pincers, their strength astonishingly powerful. A pungent odor rushed wildly into the nostrils, and consciousness quickly blurred. The last thing that came into view was Griff Shao's eyes, bloodshot and filled with madness and despair. My head felt terribly heavy, as if it had been struck by a heavy hammer. I opened my eyes and found myself in a completely unfamiliar place. It looks like an abandoned warehouse. with the air thick with dust and the smell of mildew. I was tied up, hands and feet bound, and thrown onto the cold, stained concrete floor. Not far away, Griff Shao had his back to me, talking on the phone in a low, agitated voice. "Stay out of it. I'll handle my own business. Money, I'll pay it back, 10 times over. Is that okay? Shut up. She's different. He abruptly hung up the phone and slammed it fiercely onto the ground, the screen shattering instantly. He was panting heavily, his shoulders heaving violently, teetering on the edge of extreme agitation and loss of control. I quietly shifted my numb, bound hands and feet, my heart pounding wildly in my chest, but my mind was unusually clear. He turned around, saw that I was awake, and his eyes flickered with a complex emotion before being overtaken by that obsessive madness once again. Awake, he walked over, crouched in front of me, and reached out to touch my face. I turned my head away in disgust. His hand froze mid-air, his expression growing even more unpleasant. "Do you hate me that much?" His voice was hoarse, carrying a twisted pain. "Iris Shin, what exactly is wrong with me? Haven't I been good enough to you? Why won't you just come with me?" I looked at him coldly, saying nothing. "There's no reasoning with a madman." My silence completely enraged him. He grabbed my shoulders abruptly, shaking me violently, and growled, "Speak, are you fucking mute? Do you think just because you got into college, you can get rid of me? I'm telling you, dream on. Even if you run to the ends of the earth, you're still mine, yours." I finally spoke, my voice hoarse from the burn of the drug, yet dripping with sarcasm. "Griff Shao, what else can you do besides using such despicable methods? Kidnapping? Is this what you call liking someone? I was forced by you." His eyes were bloodshot. "If you had just come with me obediently, would I have needed to do this? Iris Shin, I can't wait any longer. Tomorrow you'll enter the exam hall, and if you pass, you'll leave. I can't let you leave me." He was rambling, his logic in disarray, completely lost in his own obsessive world. "Do you even realize that what you're doing is a crime?" I tried to awaken a shred of reason in him. "Crime?" He let out a scornful laugh, as if he had just heard a joke. "What do I have to fear from a crime? At worst, I'll just lower my head and apologize to my dad. Is there anything he can't fix?" This sentence, like a bolt of lightning, instantly cut through the fog in my mind. Bow down, admit fault. Can't handle anything. In my previous life, when I was in difficult labor, I was bleeding non-stop in a rented room, in so much pain that my consciousness was fading. I grabbed his hand and begged him to take me to the hospital, but he was so overwhelmed by the lack of money that he didn't even dare to call home for help, all because of his ridiculous pride, afraid of being laughed at by his family. So it wasn't that there was no way. It turns out that all he had to do was lower his head, admit his mistake, and he could easily get the life-saving money. But he didn't. For the sake of his pitiful pride, he watched me die bit by bit in despair and pain. Immense resentment and icy despair instantly overwhelmed me. As if my blood had frozen in that very moment, I bit my lower lip so hard that I tasted the strong metallic tang of blood. Barely suppressing the scream and sob that almost escaped, my body began to tremble uncontrollably, the hatred in my eyes almost tangible enough to burn through him. Griff Shao seemed a bit unnerved by my stare, but more than that, he was annoyed. "What's with that look, Griff Shao?" I heard my voice trembling, yet icy cold. "Your family is very wealthy, isn't it?" He paused for a moment, his eyes flickering, as if caught off guard by my sudden question, and instinctively denied it. "What nonsense are you talking? Isn't it?" I cut him off, each word seeming to have been dredged up from an ice cellar. "Isn't it true that as long as you lower your head and apologize to that father of yours, you can smooth over anything, including kidnapping?" His expression remained unchanged as he looked down at me from his superior position. "Yeah, my dad can make it happen with just one word." Guessed right, just as I suspected. In my past life, until the day I died, I thought he was just a poor boy with nothing but reckless courage, but it turns out, he was actually the young master of some wealthy family, out here experiencing the hardships of the world. How ridiculous. I was like a complete fool, playing along in his tragic drama. Even at the cost of my life. Just then, outside the warehouse, the piercing sound of police sirens suddenly blared, approaching from a distance. They quickly surrounded the area. "Listen up, inside, you are surrounded. Release the hostage immediately," the authoritative voice from the loudspeaker boomed. Griff Shao froze abruptly, the madness on his face instantly replaced by shock. He looked toward the warehouse door in disbelief, then whipped his head around to stare at me. "You called the police?" he cried out, his eyes filled with the shock of betrayal and a hint of panic. "When did you?" I stared back at him coldly. Thankfully, having lived a second life, I had learned to be more cautious. From the moment I left the school gate, I set up an emergency alarm shortcut. The moment the police broke through the door, Griff Shao was quickly subdued and handcuffed. He struggled, turning his head to glare at me with eyes full of resentment and anger. "Iris, just you wait, I won't let this go." His roar was cut off by the closing police car door. Wrapped in the blanket handed to me by the police, I sat in the patrol car giving my statement, my body still trembling slightly, not from fear, but from anger and lingering dread. I knew it wouldn't end so simply. Sure enough, within 24 hours, I heard that Griff Shao had been picked up by people sent by his family. The so-called kidnapping was ultimately classified as an extreme act in an adolescent emotional dispute. And it didn't even leave a criminal record. Shao family, more powerful than I imagined. Watching the streets flash by outside the car window, I clenched my fingers. The college entrance exam ended quickly, and I left the examination hall. Watching the endless stream of cars on the road, I felt a dazed sensation, as if living in a dream. When the results came out, it was no surprise that they were more than enough to get me into that dream top-tier university. When filling out my application, I chose a prestigious university in the capital, far from the Shao family's sphere of influence. Military engineering, the major I love and that can shelter me. I spent the entire holiday working at a chain coffee shop. Being busy helps one forget many things. It was there that I met Ju Yuan. He is a student from the nearby university town and often comes to the shop to order an Americano, sitting by the window to read a book or tapping away on his laptop. He is very quiet, with gentle eyes and brows, and when he smiles, the corners of his eyes droop slightly, giving off a comfortable, non-threatening vibe. Once, when I was flustered and spilled the milk pitcher, scalding the back of my hand, it was he who promptly handed me clean tissues and ice water, gently reminding me to rinse it with cold water first. Later, when he came again, we would occasionally chat a bit, about the weather, the books he was reading, or university life. He knew I was about to go to Beijing for college. His eyes lit up as he said with a smile, "What a coincidence. I'm at that university too, starting my sophomore year in computer science. Looks like I might run into you on campus occasionally." Junior, his tone was relaxed and natural, carrying just the right amount of surprise without making it feel burdensome. I smiled, not taking it too seriously. The shadow cast by Griff Shao was too deep. I maintained a subconscious vigilance and distance from any approaching members of the opposite sex, but it's undeniable that spending time with Ju Yuan was a rare, gentle respite during that tense period. He didn't intrude too much, maintaining a comfortable sense of boundaries. Occasionally, he would send me photos of the campus scenery on social media or share some tips for freshmen to keep in mind. I would respond politely, but that was all. The start of school, a new environment, a new life, the shimmering ripples of Wei Yiming Lake, the scent of ink in the library, the sparks of intellectual collision in lectures, all of this made me feel as if I were in another world. I studied hard, joined clubs, ran for class positions, like a sponge, desperately absorbing knowledge and strength, trying to completely cover the past with a fulfilling reality, because I was somewhat good-looking. I had a few admirers, but strangely, within a few days, they would all avoid me like the plague, except for Ju Yuan. He is indeed at the same school as me, and because our college has a collaborative project with the computer science department, we occasionally run into each other in the teaching building or the cafeteria. He would greet me with a smile, sometimes save a seat for me in the library, and offer technical advice when our group assignments hit a snag. Plain, gentle, like a cup of water at just the right temperature. I could sense his subtle affection, but I never responded. That icy barrier deep in my heart was never truly let down. A year slipped by quietly amid busyness and calm. The name Griff Shao seemed to have truly vanished from my world. Occasionally, in the middle of the night, I would still wake up in a cold sweat from a dream, but upon seeing the familiar ceiling of the dorm room, my heart would slowly calm down. I almost believed that I had truly escaped that nightmare, until that autumn evening. I had just left the library, carrying a stack of thick books, thinking about attending a lecture by a top expert in the field that evening. A black Bentley Mulsanne pulled up silently beside me. The car window slowly rolled down. A familiar yet unfamiliar profile came into view. The hair was still neatly cut short, but no longer a striking yellow, it was now a steady black. Dressed in a well-tailored black suit with a crisply ironed white shirt underneath, the collar impeccably neat, his profile appeared more chiseled, the youthful softness gone, replaced by the stern outline of a mature man. He slowly turned his head, his gaze precisely locking onto me. Those eyes were no longer the bloodshot, desperate madness, but rather a bottomless, dark abyss. Calm yet exuding a cold, oppressive sense of control, Griff Shao, my blood seemed to freeze in an instant. And my fingers holding the book instinctively tightened, turning white at the knuckles. He pushed the car door open and stepped out. He seemed even taller than before, standing before me, his shadow almost completely enveloping me. He carried a faint, cool woody scent, replacing the memory of that light tobacco and sweat smell. Long time no see, Irishan, he spoke, his voice deep and mellow, his eyes fixed intently on me like a snake sliding over skin, with a cold, sticky sensation. It seems you've had a good year. I forced myself to stand firm, meeting his unfathomable eyes, and kept my voice as steady as possible. What are you doing here? Why can't I be here? He curled his lips slightly, but there was no warmth in that smile, only a condescending scrutiny. The Shao family has quite a few businesses in Beijing. Isn't it normal for me, as the heir, to come check on my own properties, investment? I frowned, the unease in my heart rapidly expanding. Maybe you should guess. He took a step forward, his overwhelming presence almost suffocating me. Where all your admirers have gone. My mind buzzed as if struck by a heavy hammer. He's been secretly watching me. You. Tremendous anger and humiliation made my whole body tremble. What exactly do you want? What do I want? He chuckled softly, reaching out his hand, his icy fingertips almost touching my cheek. But I jerked away. He didn't seem to mind, leisurely withdrawing his hand. Yet his gaze was like a cold shackle, firmly locking onto me. A year ago, you left in that manner, and I was very displeased. Irishan, what I set my eyes on, I have never failed to obtain. His tone was calm, yet it carried an unquestionable, absolute cruelty of control. Do you think that by changing your location and your clothes, you can escape me? He leaned in slightly, drawing closer, his cold breath brushing against my earlobe. Don't be naive. In the past, I was foolish, always wanting to reason with you through emotions. Now I understand that some things are far more useful than feelings. For example, power. The last two words were uttered with extreme softness, yet they pierced my heart like a venomous needle. At that moment, Zhu Yuan happened to exit from another door of the library and saw me. A gentle smile appeared on his face as he quickly walked toward me. Irishan, haven't you gone to the lecture yet? Shall we go together? His words came to an abrupt halt, because he saw the imposing Griff Shao standing in front of me, and my face as pale as paper. Griff Shao slowly straightened up, his gaze sweeping over Zhu Yuan as if he were an insignificant object, even carrying a hint of contemptuous amusement. And who is this? He asked in a flat tone, yet with the scrutiny of a host. Zhu Yuan felt somewhat uncomfortable under his gaze but maintained his politeness. I'm a classmate of Irishan, and you are? Griff Shao didn't answer, instead shifting his gaze back to my face, a cold smile curling at the corner of his lips. Seems like you haven't been idle this past year. He took out his phone, casually swiped a few times, then turned the screen toward Zhu Yuan. I only saw Zhu Yuan's face instantly turn deathly pale. His pupils constricted sharply, his lips trembling as if he had seen something extremely terrifying. Griff Shao put away his phone and said in a flat tone, a friendly reminder. Zhu, a computer science major, talented in programming, has won many awards, and is planning to apply for an exchange program at Stanford. You should have a bright future, but only if you don't mess with the wrong people. Zhu Yuan's face turned from pale to ashen, and even fine beads of cold sweat began to form on his temples. He suddenly looked at me, his eyes filled with terror, panic, and a trace of barely concealed retreat and apology. He didn't even dare to look at Griff Shao again, his lips trembling a few times, but in the end, he said nothing, almost stumbling. He quickly walked away without looking back. The autumn wind swept up the fallen leaves, swirling them into the cold air between us, watching Ju Yuan's almost fleeing figure. The last faint glimmer of hope in my heart was completely extinguished. Look, Iris Shen, this is reality. Griff Shao looked at all this with satisfaction, as if casually brushing away an eyesore speck of dust. His gaze fell back on me, his deep eyes revealing an almost cruel determination and possessiveness. Now, the nuisance is gone, Iris Shen, let's take it slow. He began to openly intervene in my life. First, my roommate was replaced for various reasons, and eventually, I was assigned to a corner dormitory that was almost uninhabited. Then, rumors about me being materialistic, kept by someone, and pestering a rich second generation for money began to spread like wildfire across the campus, with vivid details. Once friendly classmates looked at me with strange eyes, pointing and whispering behind my back. I tried to explain, but no one believed me, or rather, no one dared to believe me. The name Griff Shao carried an invisible intimidation. He even kindly appeared before me, speaking in a helpless yet indulgent tone in front of everyone. Iris, stop being stubborn, come back with me, I'll give you anything you want. This confirms my image of being money-worshipping and insatiably greedy. All my part-time jobs were sabotaged in various ways. The cafe owner, under pressure, tactfully dismissed me and didn't even dare to pay my final wages. Every scholarship and financial aid I applied for was rejected without exception. For all sorts of bizarre reasons. What was even more devastating was that, just before one of my crucial professional exams, my study materials and notes vanished without a trace, replaced by cheat sheets found in my desk, despite the lack of direct evidence. I was disqualified from that exam and given a disciplinary record. The professors looked at me with pity and a hint of disapproval, as if saying, "This child has gone astray," each time. I could feel those cold hands pulling the strings behind the scenes. He doesn't harm me directly, but he gradually clips my wings, narrows my space, trying to suffocate me, to make me yield, to make me understand that without him, I can't take a single step. My classmates have gradually distanced themselves from me, their gazes filled with more curiosity and wariness, as if I were some kind of trouble that shouldn't be touched. I grit my teeth and endure, pouring all my time and energy even more frantically into my studies, especially into that top-secret project group I accidentally joined, led by a national treasure-level senior professor. The field of the group's research is extremely sensitive, involving a cutting-edge theoretical module of the nation's deep strategic weapons. I ended up here purely by chance, because a certain idea in an unremarkable course paper I wrote during my freshman year caught the attention of this unconventional professor who values talent. Here became my only safe haven. The laboratory has the strictest security and confidentiality protocols, so even with Griff Shao's far-reaching influence, he cannot yet penetrate the core area for the time being. But I underestimated his madness and the Shao family's influence. In my junior year, the project entered the most critical phase of theoretical validation. Griff Shao also seemed to have lost his last shred of patience. A meticulously planned accusation of academic misconduct suddenly descended. Anonymous submitted several forged yet seemingly ironclad materials to the school disciplinary committee and the project team, accusing me of stealing achievements and falsifying data, with a fierce and harsh tone. Although the senior professor strongly defended me and the core members of the project team knew me well, under the pressure of conclusive evidence and unidentified higher-ups, the school decided to suspend me for investigation to minimize the impact. I was effectively expelled from the laboratory and campus. On that rainy day, I walked out of the school gate pulling my suitcase, and a black Bentley had long been waiting there. Griff Shao stood by the car, holding a black umbrella. Impeccably dressed in a suit and tie, he watched my disheveled state with an expressionless face, exuding an air of detached control. Ignoring my protests, he dragged me into the car. While the people around turned a blind eye, I was roughly taken into a lavishly decorated yet cold room. Griff Shao loosened his tie, his face no longer showing the rage of a young man, but a more unsettling, deep-seated gloom and desire for control. Iris Shen, you never learn. It seems I have to resort to this to keep you by my side. I leaned against the cold marble wall, my stomach churning. He let out a scornful laugh and slowly approached, his fingertips nearly brushing my cheek before I slapped them away. He wasn't angry. Instead, he smiled, a smile devoid of warmth. Only a kind of cat-and-mouse mockery. Last time, I was careless and let you slip through the cracks. It won't happen again. This place is safe enough for us to properly nurture our relationship. He deliberately emphasized the words nurture our relationship, sending a chill down my spine. In the following days, I was confined to this gilded cage. The windows were sealed shut, and there was always someone guarding the door. Griff Shao didn't always show up, but he came every week, each time with an air of scrutiny and waiting, as if anticipating my breakdown, my surrender. I resisted in silence, searching for any chance to escape, my heart burning with anxiety yet not daring to show it. Until the third night, he came in again, holding an exquisite velvet box. Opening it, inside was not jewelry, but a small syringe and a tiny bottle of clear liquid. My heart skipped a beat, a sense of foreboding instantly seizing me. You haven't been sleeping well lately, and you're tense. He calmly picked up the syringe, skillfully drawing the liquid from the bottle, the needle tip expelling tiny bubbles that glinted with a cold light. Help you relax, it's a good thing. Something many people beg for but can't get. Take it away, I snapped, stepping back, my back slamming hard against the wall with nowhere to escape. Griff Shao, how dare you? Why wouldn't I dare? He stepped closer, his eyes filled with a maddening possessiveness and a twisted kind of love. Iris, you're too stubborn. Always refusing my kindness. It will make you feel better. It will make you realize who truly cares for you, who can give you everything you need. Get away, don't touch me. I struggled with all my might, but days of anxiety and lack of food had left me weak, and I was easily pinned down by the maid he had brought along, her grip firm on my arms. Despair and fear washed over me like ice-cold water. It'll be over soon, it won't hurt. He gently brushed aside the sweat-soaked hair from my forehead, his movements almost tender, and then, a cold alcohol swab wiped across the skin of my arm. The next second, a sharp, stinging pain shot through me. The needle mercilessly pierced the vein, and the icy liquid was slowly pushed into my body. I stopped struggling, my pupils dilated with extreme fear. He pulled out the needle and signaled the maid to release me. I collapsed to the ground, futilely trying to squeeze the puncture wound. As if that could somehow expel what had already entered my bloodstream, a strange sensation began to spread. After the initial chill, a fleeting warmth followed, and my tense nerves seemed to truly relax. A false, elusive sense of comfort enveloped me, pushing the fear and anxiety in my mind aside for a moment, but reason was screaming wildly. I could only desperately resist this feeling. Griff Shao crouched down, looking with satisfaction at the uncontrollable, dazed yet relaxed expression on my face, his fingertips tracing my cheek. See, isn't it much better? His voice seemed to come from a distant place, laced with temptation. Don't be afraid, I'll give it to you whenever you need it, as long as you stay obediently by my side. You bastard. I struggled to curse, only to find that even my strength to be angry was fading, my voice weak and feeble. He chuckled softly, as if hearing some amusing sweet talk. Go ahead and curse. Soon you'll realize that only I can give you this kind of pleasure. You won't be able to live without it, or without me. The days that followed became an endless cycle. That thing is regularly injected into my body. Every resistance results in a more forceful injection, and after each injection, that false sense of pleasure and relief only makes me more terrified. My body is shamefully adapting to it, even craving it. When sober, I despise my own weakness and obsessively think about escaping. But when the first signs of withdrawal appear, as palpitations, cold sweats, uncontrollable anxiety, and cravings set in, Griff Shao and the syringe in his hand become an irresistible temptation. He enjoys this process, relishing my gradually crumbling will and the unmistakable struggle and dependence in my eyes. Look how perfect we are together, he said after one injection, stroking my hair and gazing at my drug-hazed eyes with a tone of morbid satisfaction. You are mine. After all, inside and out, I have no sense of time. I don't know how long it has been. Day after day, I am on the verge of collapse. I began to doubt myself. Am I really that terrible? Am I really unable to live without him? Is my resistance truly meaningless? Occasionally, Under his feigned tenderness, I even develop a twisted sense of dependency, only to be immediately overwhelmed by immense self-loathing. I looked at the woman in the bathroom mirror, her eyes hollow, pale, and gaunt, and felt an overwhelming sense of unfamiliarity and despair. Thoughts of suicide cling to me like maggots to the bone, haunting me incessantly, just as I was on the verge of despair. A black car with special military plates came to an abrupt, almost aggressive halt in front of the Bentley. Two men in civilian clothes but with ramrod-straight postures and sharp eyes quickly stepped out of the vehicle, immediately presenting their credentials. National Security Department. Comrade Iris Shen is involved in a critical national project and must come with us immediately for questioning. One of them spoke in a cold, hard tone. His gaze sharp as lightning as it swept over Griff Shao. Unrelated personnel, please leave immediately. For the first time, a crack appeared on Griff Shao's face. He clearly hadn't anticipated that someone would unexpectedly intervene, and with such a formidable background, he attempted to negotiate. I am her. We don't care who you are. Another man interrupted him rudely, his hand already resting on his waist, exuding an intimidating presence. We're taking her away. Interference will be treated as obstruction of official duties. Griff Shao's gaze was terrifyingly dark. He stared at me intently, then turned his eyes to the two imposing security personnel. In the end, he said nothing more, watching as I was taken away, his eyes sinister, as if saying, "This isn't over." I followed the two men into the car almost numbly. I don't know if this is another trap, but in any case, it's better than falling into Griff Shao's hands. I was taken to an extremely heavily guarded base. It turns out that the project team I was part of was far more important than I had imagined, and the key theoretical model I proposed was proven at the last moment to have groundbreaking value, directly solving the bottleneck that had plagued the team for years. Upon learning that I had been suspended, the old professor flew into a rage and immediately activated the highest-level emergency reporting channel. With the intervention of national-level forces, the allegations of academic misconduct against me were swiftly and thoroughly investigated, quickly bringing the truth to light and shattering all false accusations. The pressure exerted by the Shao family appeared laughable and feeble in the face of genuine national will. After a prolonged period of mental strain, the sudden release of tension caused me to faint. When I regained a bit of consciousness again, I found myself in a completely unfamiliar place. It wasn't a hospital, but a solemn expanse of white, with the air filled with the smell of disinfectant and a certain oppressive calm. My wrists were secured to the bed with soft restraints to prevent me from harming myself. "You're awake," said a female doctor in a white uniform, her expression so calm it was almost stern, standing by the bedside. "This is a secure isolation unit, Comrade Iris Shen. You are safe now. But the road ahead will be extremely difficult. I forced a bitter smile with great effort. Could anything be harder than being in hell? Soon, I would learn what true hell really meant. The withdrawal symptoms of the first peak completely overwhelmed me like a tsunami. It wasn't just pain. It was a collection of thousands of different kinds of pain. Every muscle was screaming, tearing, twitching, as if ice shards had been poured into the bone crevices and then set on fire. Cold sweat instantly soaked through my clothes, then quickly turned into icy shivers. Intense abdominal pain and nausea made me curl up into a ball, but I couldn't vomit anything. Only acid and bile kept surging up. My vision was blurry, my ears filled with a constant buzzing and my own uncontrollable, agonizing moans and even screams. The most terrifying part was the psychological craving. It felt as though countless hands were clawing at my heart and brain. And a voice was frantically screaming that just a little, even the tiniest bit, would instantly free me from this boundless sea of suffering. Griff Shao's face, the cold glint of the syringe, flickered uncontrollably before my eyes, tempting and mocking. "Kill me. Give it to me, please." My consciousness was scattered, tears and snot streaming down my face as I begged without a shred of dignity, banging my head against the soft mattress, my wrists rubbed raw by the restraints. The doctors and nurses held me down expressionlessly, injecting me with sedatives and symptom-relieving drugs, but compared to the extreme agony brought by heroin, it was almost like trying to put out a fire with a cup of water. "Endure it, Iris Shen, you have to endure it yourself." The female doctor's voice cut through my chaos, cold and forceful. "No one can replace you. Think about why you're here, think about what you need to do, why, what should I do, in the chaos of my mind. Griff Xiao's twisted smile flashed by, followed by the coldness and despair on the birthing bed in my past life, and the absurd scene of those 10 monks urging me not to delay his wedding night. Hatred, that bone-deep hatred, almost worn away by medication, pierced through the thick fog like a sharp needle, bringing a moment of fleeting clarity. I let out a howl that sounded inhuman, no longer pleading but using all my strength to resist the physiological torrent that sought to destroy my will. One wave subsides, another rises. Withdrawal symptoms are not continuous, they come in waves. Just when you think you've survived the worst of it, the next, more intense attack is already brewing. 4 days and nights, I drifted in and out of this extreme agony. I rapidly withered away, as if all my vitality had been drained. The moments of clarity grew fewer and farther between. Beyond the physical suffering, the mental collapse was equally devastating. Long-term control by drugs and the brainwashing from Griff Xiao's PUA has made my nervous system extremely fragile. Anxiety, depression, hallucinations, paranoia, various mental symptoms appear in rotation. At times, I feel so low that I just want to die. At other times, I experience inexplicable panic attacks with a strong sense of suffocation. Sometimes I feel dazed, as if Griff Xiao is standing outside the window watching me. Other times, I feel like the doctors and nurses are all sent by him to harm me. The psychologist comes every day, patiently guiding me to rebuild my shattered perception. That isn't happiness, it's a trap. What he feels for you isn't love, it's a desire for control and destruction. Your worth is not defined by him. You are brave. You are creating miracles. During the most painful times, I couldn't take in a single word of these phrases, but in moments of occasional clarity, they were like faint glimmers of light, gradually illuminating my pitch-black inner world. The recovery process is long and painful. Sometimes I feel a bit better, but the next moment, I might have an emotional breakdown due to a subtle trigger, and the craving comes rushing back. Vomiting, diarrhea, insomnia, and severe muscle pain. These symptoms persisted for weeks before gradually easing. I started attending classes and group therapy at the rehabilitation center. Seeing others who were emaciated and had their families destroyed by drugs, and listening to their stories, I came to a deeper realization of how close I once was to complete destruction. My body is gradually recovering, but the wounds in my heart will take much longer to heal. I have a physiological fear of that white powder and the syringe, but there remains a morbid craving. I am afraid of crowds, afraid to trust, and often wake up from nightmares at night, dreaming of Griff Xiao and that villa. But I survived. The months here felt like rolling through every layer of the 18 levels of hell. I shed a layer of skin, crawling out of the filthiest mire, driven by hatred and the last shred of unwillingness to give up. When I was finally able to steadily walk out of the quarantine zone and stand under the sunlight, the female doctor looked at me and finally revealed a faint smile. Congratulations, Comrade Iris-shan, you have passed the most difficult test and gained a new life. I know. The pain Griff Xiao brought me, I will return it to him tenfold, 100-fold. After coming out, I joined that project. It felt as if I had entered an isolated fortress. Here, there is only research, data, and a group of highly intelligent, focused colleagues. All my talents and accumulated experience have been fully utilized on this platform. I don't know how much time has passed outside, until one day, the project achieved a major milestone success. At the victory banquet, an officer with a general's star on his shoulder personally awarded me the medal and certificate. He looked at me, his eyes filled with admiration and a hint of complexity. Comrade Iris-shan, you have rendered great service to the country. However, because of this, you have become a target in the eyes of certain forces. To protect you and the achievements, it has been decided after careful consideration that your identity will be classified at the highest level. And you will be provided with a new identity and position. You will need to temporarily bid farewell to your past life. I see. This meant that Griff Xiao, and even the entire Xiao family, would no longer be able to easily reach the person known as Iris-shan. I had transformed from an ordinary student they could easily manipulate into an important scientific researcher protected by the nation's power. I have obtained certain permissions, making it as easy as turning over my hand to investigate the Xiao family, drug trafficking, tax evasion, human trafficking. Everything the Shao family has done is even darker than I imagined. The case against the Shao family was handled swiftly and decisively, with solid evidence from a special source, leaving almost no room for maneuver. The Shao family has fallen. Griff was sentenced to a heavy penalty and sent to a prison known for its extremely strict management, housing serious offenders and special individuals. Once the influential eldest son of the Shao family, he lost all his glory and protection here. His pride and brutality were no match for absolute violence. On his first day in prison, he was severely punished by the seasoned inmates for not knowing the rules, had all his slightly better belongings taken away, and was assigned the dirtiest and most exhausting tasks. He tried to resist, only to be met with even more brutal beatings. The prison guards turned a blind eye. As long as no lives were lost, his once proud appearance quickly became haggard, with dark circles and fear perpetually shadowing his eyes. The eyes that once looked down on others with contempt now only dared to fixate on the ground, avoiding any possible eye contact. Physical torment was only one part of it. The drug withdrawal symptoms erupted violently after he was imprisoned. But without the relatively humane management and medication relief found in drug rehabilitation centers, he could only curl up on the cold, hard bed, screaming, convulsing, enduring the excruciating pain as if his bones were being scraped and his tendons pulled, suffering from incontinence and a complete loss of dignity. The other prisoners merely watched coldly, even taking pleasure in it. "Hey, young Master Shao, isn't everything supposed to be buyable with money? How does it feel now?" Mockery and ridicule were a daily occurrence. Mental torment is even more severe. He fell completely from the clouds into the mud, transforming from an abuser into a complete victim. The immense psychological gap and the ever-present fear nearly drove him insane. He began to experience hallucinations, constantly feeling as if someone was watching him from the shadows. Always fearing that some terrible torment would strike at any moment, he tried to reach out to the outside world. But all his letters and call requests went unanswered. He was unaware that all his external communications were silently monitored and filtered by a higher authority. Any information that might have sought even a sliver of help was precisely intercepted. He was completely without hope. During a work session in the prison factory, an accident occurred. A machine malfunctioned and crashed heavily onto his right hand, although he received prompt medical treatment. Several of his fingers suffered severe comminuted fractures. Even after being barely reattached, they permanently lost their flexibility, leaving him with a serious disability and lifelong excruciating pain. That hand, which had once signed billion-dollar contracts, caressed countless luxury items, and had also forcibly injected me with drugs, was now ruined. The investigation results were naturally due to an accidental operational error. As for whether someone tampered with it due to old grudges or untraceable instructions, there is no way to know. After this incident, he became even more silent and gloomy, like a startled bird, completely losing all his sharpness and vitality. His body broke down, and his spirit was on the verge of collapse. Years later, the Shao family completely fell apart. Their assets were divided up, family members scattered far and wide, and no one remembered him. The heir rotting away in prison. Several more years passed, and because of his good behavior in prison, along with his severely deteriorating physical and mental condition, he was assessed as no longer posing a threat to society. He was transferred to a slightly better, but medically under-resourced psychiatric prison for inmates. There, he spent his days curled up in a corner, staring blankly at the small patch of sky outside the barred window, occasionally murmuring fragmented words unconsciously. "Iris, I was wrong. My hand hurts. Let me go." No one could understand, and no one cared. He was like a decaying log that still breathed, rotting and stinking day after day in a neglected corner, waiting for his life to be slowly and naturally consumed. He got everything he deserved, a long, hopeless, and slowly decaying remainder of life, spent in pain and misery. The end.